number up so that you guys can start to text in your questions. And sometimes we can't take them all. In fact, usually we will try our best to get through as many as we can. And great, we've got a clock. That's awesome. And so one of the things we try to do too is if a lot of people text in a similar kind of question or along the same vein, we will tend to kind of move those up a little bit because that means there's a lot of you that are thinking the same thing or wanting the same things. So first of all, I just want to kind of start and get us going. Maybe we could just start on one side. I'll just put you on the spot, Trevor. We'll start at one end and go down and just say, what is your passion around wellness and well-being?
My passion for wellness and well-being is I love emotions. Emotions are really beautiful. We all have them. We all have them. And I get so excited when I get to sit down with a person and really connect with them emotionally. I'm going to give away a little bit of what I'm going to be talking about later, but emotions are like a phone line to our souls. They connect us. So I'm really passionate about emotions. I'm really passionate about emotions for men, which is like their worst nightmare. Probably not all men, but I'm really passionate about helping men become more aware of their emotions, build relational skills, build emotional skills, because they deserve to have a rich relational life.
Yeah, love it.
So I'm going to start with a highly technical term that my niece and nephew use because this is a big question. I'm going to start with OOF. So I am one of those.
Is that an acronym?
Yeah, it's an acronym. Yeah, sure. I am one of those men that was very afraid of my emotions and afraid to share them. As a veteran, a lot of times, both men and women, we're kind of ingrained with this idea that we are tough enough to do anything. We don't really need to talk about it. Drink water, rub dirt on it, drive on, right? It's the biggest lie in the entire world. You can't always do it alone. You can very rarely do it alone. And I tried for a really long time to do it alone, and it put me on a path that was quite literally put me at the end of the barrel of a gun on more than one occasion. And I've lost so many friends, my best friend in the entire world, to that same struggle and that same idea and thought process. So my passion comes from having lived it, having seen people not survive it, and wanting to give more back to the veteran community because they have so much to offer. We have so much to offer. And yeah, thank you for having me.
I'm kind of, I guess I'm a work in progress. I'm new to this whole addressing my emotions journey. In 2020, I lost both of my parents and my aunt and my cat and my job, and then topped off with losing a friend to suicide. And this is on top of a lifelong struggle with bipolar disorder. So I had to do something, and the only thing I could think of after what my other aunt telling me there's no wrong way to grieve is I got on an electric skateboard and I just started riding. And about 4,500 miles into that, I took a small crew to Iceland where I attempted to go around the ring road as a tribute to my parents and also to get my own mind right, and implemented my documentary filmmaking. And yeah, I'm still learning. I'm gonna learn a lot up here. Hopefully I have something to add.
And you know what I would like to do, if it's okay with Valiant, can we queue up, there's a promo that I believe that we have for that documentary, and this could be a really great time to play that if Valiant can grab that.
So much easier than explaining myself.
It's pretty phenomenal.
April 2020, my mom passed away. The morning of her funeral, I got a call that a friend of mine had taken his own life. In August, I lost my job. In November, my aunt passed away. And a few days before Christmas, I lost my dad. Oh yeah, and the global pandemic. The only thing that got me out of the house was riding my electric skateboard. At some point, I got this crazy idea that I wanted to be the first person to ride the ring road of Iceland, 828 miles. I'm riding across asphalt at close to 40 miles per hour, standing up with nothing to hold on to.
I get what you're going through, but maybe
taking risks and putting your body on the line isn't the thing to do. But I think there's probably a bigger mental risk in not doing it at this point.
Something that really strikes me about Kerry is that you can't talk him out of it. He's going to find a way. If anything stops him, it's going to be things that are outside of his control.
Oh, there it is. I'm so done, dude. I'm just f***ing done. This is a documentary about failure.
I have faith in you. I'm gonna be here. If you fall, my hand is right here. I'm gonna lift your ass up.
Since my dad died, there's been this voice in my head, and it's saying, move while you still can. They say there's no wrong way to grieve. I hope that's true, because I chose this.
That documentary played here, and I remember sitting here watching it, and I know Kerry, he's done actually some work for us and things, and I remember thinking that was one of the most real experiences I've seen, and also where a man was really emoting just and being, he was just so authentic, which if you know Kerry, you know that's just who he is. And I just was so inspired by that because I was thinking, just like what Isaac and Trevor said, men need to see it because we've talked about this, that I need to see somebody that looks somewhat like me or is my gender doing the thing. So thank you for being first responders, in a wave of hopefully men realizing how relational they are and that emotions are a part of us and that grieving is real and it deserves to be done however somebody does it in a healthy way. So that's awesome.
That's amazing. I think after that, I'm like, we need to drop all the mics. But I think for me, one of the things, we just saw the documentary. For me, when I heard the question, the passion, and I think it's really what we just saw right now, to have the influence and impact in a way beyond weekend through physical means. So both as an educator and also as a therapist and counselor, one of the things that we enjoy in the work that we're doing is just being able to make that intimate connection with another human being. And we heard it this morning with some of our speakers talking about being seen. That, for me, is what drives me when I can actually see the other person in a very genuine way, and also being able to train other counselors and therapists to be a part of that journey. That can change communities too. So this is why I'm here.
Good morning, everyone. Tough act to follow. So I do want to drop the mic and just walk away. So I'm here first and foremost because of Shelley. Her ask was pretty special, and I couldn't turn it down because this is a pretty special group, although I can't see you because there's lights shining in my eyes. But mental health, well-being, it resonates profoundly with through my core. To me, it is an anchor that allows us to critically think beyond oneself. It is an anchor that allows us to process complex, comprehensive information, observations, experiences, lived experiences through our minds and into our hearts. It allows us to elevate our levels of emotional intelligence so that when I'm listening and I'm talking to all of you, I can understand where you're coming from. I can pick up cues within your facial expressions, your body languages that signal to me, maybe this is an uncomfortable conversation and I need to just take a pause and be with you as opposed to just being with me here. I'm the founder and executive director of the Idaho Museum of International Diaspora, and so some of the earlier presenters really resonated with me in the context of involuntary displacement of peoples, plural, from their origin homelands or homes. And so being able to activate actively activate our levels of cultural intelligence to be able to discern where are you at in your culture, whether that's race or ethnicity, but also where you're at in your culture. Even though you're from the same family, there are generational differences in cultures. And so I need to be able to be well mentally, health-wise, to be able to discern all of that so I can be with you. And being with you is so important to me than just being with me, no more. It's us collectively, because together we are going to impact transformational change in our communities for the next generations to enjoy.
I have to say, yes, give it up. I have to say thank you, Susie Rios, because I was asking Susie, who do you know? And in what I was telling her, she was like, oh, I know somebody you need to meet. And we met at Crave, and I just fell in love with you. I'll just tell you right now on the stage in front of everybody, we just had this big connection. It was one of those moments, how do I not know all these amazing people doing incredible things right here in Idaho? And she's doing things, and maybe we'll talk about a little bit more later, that are making changes around the world. People are calling her around the world to say, can you do one of those museums here? What are those collaborations? So it's pretty neat, the impact that Idaho can have on mental wellness, is having, and on cultural things, but we're having that impact not just here, but nationwide. So I just think this is amazing. We are very honored to have all of you on the stage. Thank you.
First question. Okay. A common theme I see in leaders is the battle with imposter syndrome. What is one tool or practice you would recommend to someone that is battling their belief in themselves? Also, how does imposter syndrome start?
So, this exact moment and reading through the list of people that I would be speaking with, I suffered from imposter syndrome. So, being that I don't have some of the tools that some of these other people have, I don't know that there's any real tool that I can identify other than just knowing that your story matters, reminding myself that my story matters, that I've been through a lot of the same struggles, maybe situationally different, right? But some of the same negative thoughts and doubts, and that makes me worthy of being on a stage like this, talking to people like you and sharing my story, because you probably share a lot of similarities with me. So that is how I overcome it. I still, even as I was walking up here, was like, shoot. but yeah, that.
I think for me, this is a common question that I get. Part of my work is also not only training counselors, but also training supervisors and training leaders. And this always comes up. And similar to you, I was also kind of second guessing. I was like, can I still cancel? But I knew I was going to see Trevor, and he wouldn't let me cancel. So it is real. So the first thing, because the recommendation was, are there practical things that you can do? So know that everybody at all levels, we experience levels of that imposter syndrome. And if you want to think about data, one of the research that I read, that it was around 85% of people at any given time are experiencing imposter syndrome. So know that it's happening. So that right away is one of the things we can do.
Okay. So being in the counseling program and starting to see clients, I literally, just like any of you, and that moment of sitting down for the first time with a client, imposter syndrome is just like, bing, like, who am I? Like, do you know I have a counselor? Did you know? Did you know I'm in therapy?
That makes a good counselor right there.
So Shelly has been so. People get up on this stage and they're like, Shelly has changed my life. She's like the fairy godmother. I don't have my pumpkin carousel, but I've got my shoes. She helped me get my shoes. oh, I totally sidetracked myself. She has been so helpful for me in the past several months of just encouraging me, having somebody in your corner, cheering you on, telling you you can do this. I think that's a huge tool. So what networks, like what person do you have in your network that can stand beside you and say, you've got this? Because where does it start? It starts in here. Like somewhere along the way, we've learned that we can't, we're not enough, we're not able, we're not capable. So we have those tapes going on loop, and we need we can use somebody alongside of us to help reprogram those things. And really, I like to think about like building a testimony. So first time getting on stage to speak, like that's really scary. But once I do it, and once I have that success, I have that testimony that I can hold on to, and I can say, I have done this before. I've done it before, I can do it again. So feeling the fear, feeling it and doing it anyway, and then remembering what you've done in the past, and then having people that can stand in your corner and cheer you on.
All right. Oh, next, do we have a next question?
All right. What is a life coach?
Did you just have imposter syndrome? Because you and I are the life coaches up here. Like, have you met you? So a life coach in the state of Idaho, you do not have to have necessarily a certification to be a life coach. So what I will also say to that is be careful, because somebody can literally call themselves a life coach and, make sure it's a good fit and they actually have some credibility and experience where they can really help you. Because a lot of times we are getting vulnerable, whether it's through counseling, going to see a doctor, getting a life coach. And so you just want to make sure it resonates with you. It doesn't bump up against a belief system. I mean, the belief systems that we need to bump up against good, but not something like, whether it's your faith or something. You just want to get somebody that really can speak powerfully into your life, but that you're also safe with, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, financially, and all of those things. In other states, you do have to have a certification, and there's lots of different ways to get certified. But a life coach is basically, we don't follow all of the same exact kind of rules as counselors do, so it's a different modality, and I'll let counselors kind of speak to that a little bit. That's why I'm a life coach, not a counselor, because I'm like, oh, I'd get in trouble in those four walls, because I'm going to say things that are kind of outside of the boundary. But there's also a lot of different kinds of life coaches and counselors, so I think that's really important. There's niches and people that have not only experience, but special certifications and training in these different things. And so depending on what you're wanting a life coach for, whether it's more business or personal, money, relationships, trauma, PTSD, there's so many different things. Anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts. There's so many things that we can get coaches for in all kinds of ways. Some of those need certifications in Idaho and some don't. So hopefully that helps. Now, give us your little life coach thing.
Well, I of course know what a life coach is, but I was reading the question and I was taking the seat of moderator. So yeah.
All right.
Next question. What do you find is the biggest challenge in mental health recovery?
I could talk about this for days. The first word is consistency. Through my journey, I've come across a lot of tools. I found some that don't work. I found some that do work. I get a lot out of adventure. I get a lot out of, obviously riding a skateboard in ridiculous places at high speeds, climbing mountains, etc. But there's also like a lot of simpler tools. None of you guys have to go buy a skateboard. None of you guys have to go to Iceland. I recommend it. It's beautiful. But consistency every day. And one of the things that's helped me, and this is just a very specific thing that all of you can do right now, is I have an app called Dailyo. And every day I mark off like what kind of sleep I got, what kind of things did I eat, who did I spend time with, what activities did I do, and then there's a little place at the bottom where I do a journal entry. If my mood is off, then it gives me a minute to pause and look at why was my mood off. Like, did I eat something? Did I eat too much sugar? Am I getting inflammation in my body? I do have a little bit of a problem with this question, as it says recovery, and you want to get to a certain point of homeostasis where you can manage yourself. but it's an ongoing thing. I didn't pull up to the cathedral in Reykjavik at the end of that trip and say, okay, I'm good now, let's go. It's consistency every day, making an effort, and that's why I'm here today, is because of these habits that I've developed, that I am able to be here and talk about it.
No, hello. Okay. Great. And I'd like to add to that because the consistency really resonates with me. So within my multiple hats, the one with the Division of Public Health here at the state of Idaho, Idaho Department of Health and Welfare, I oversee suicide prevention program and the drug overdose prevention program. And my team are working diligently on resources and opportunities to help communities and individuals heal. So there are 3 focus areas. The prevention, right? Because when we're activated, or you've heard the word triggers, how do we prevent that? How do we foster this state of mental well-being? And then there's the intervention. What resources, providers, clinicians, community resources do we access? And then there's the postvention. So when an episode or an unfortunate situation happens, like a suicide, how do we prevent another from happening? How do we prevent the family member or the friend who had just experienced, lived through that scenario, prevent that individual from thinking or having suicide ideation? So there's the prevention, intervention, and postvention side of things.
Well, and to add on to what Carrie said, with recovery, I refer to it as a mental health journey. And for me, the biggest barrier to that, or the biggest stumbling block, was being able to understand that it's okay to not be okay. And before you can ever even get on that journey, before you can get to the consistency and starting putting these things in place, you have to be able to kind of make peace with the idea that you always have to have it together and you have to put on this face, or this facade. It just isn't the case. The first step to that journey is just saying, hey, like looking in the mirror, like Stacia said, and saying, I love you. It's also looking in that mirror and saying, I'm not okay, and that's all right.
What do you do when someone shares about their mental issues and then asks you to keep it a secret? How do you help them and encourage them to get help?
I have a little bit to say on this. First, you keep their secrets, all of them, except for one. If someone's in distress, if someone's on the edge, you have to intervene. And then you just encourage them to get help. You encourage them to talk to a professional. 'Cause I'm not a mental health professional, so everything I say, just take with a grain of salt. But yeah, I've had some friends come to me, and I'll keep all their secrets except for one.
So this is a huge one for me. I talked about losing my friend, and if there's one word that I can put out there is act. Talk to them, be there for them, take action as quickly as you can with them. And if you want to keep the secret, but if it gets to a point where you know that that secret is a detriment, if you know that they're coming to the end of that journey and not in a positive way, you have to take action, because you don't want to live with the regret that comes with not stepping up and not doing what needs to be done. And you know, they may, in some situations, it may hurt a relationship for a while, right? But at least that relationship is there to regain at some point, because you don't ever want to look back and question, like, what else could I have done?
If I can add to, you don't need to be a counselor. Many times people are going to talk to you first before they ever come to a counselor or therapist or a life coach or anybody else. They'll come to you. So I love the idea of being able to Obviously, the first thing we've heard throughout the 2 days is we want to be able to hear them and really listen to what's happening to them. I think many times what I hear when I'm really understanding, they're afraid of even acknowledging, because unfortunately our stigma around accessing mental health is so complex, and they're shamed. Our media shames them at times. So trying to figure out ways, so I would be kind of strategic and talk about, hey, is there anything I can do to help you in that process? Who other than me needs to hold this information, because you matter? And typically, by the time they get to a counselor or therapist, what I hear is somebody like that leaned into them and said, you need help, and let me come with you. And that's what brought him. So you count within this. You're critical.
So my other hat, so I teach at Boise State University, and I have many students in the past who have reached out to me. And it's been a practice of mine now that when I launch a course at the beginning of the semester or a session, I say, now let's talk about mental health, right? Let's talk about where you're at, because there's a lot of stressors, academic, professional, or lack of profession, family life. There's nothing that we can't get through if you reach out, right? You gotta reach out. And so when called to act, you gotta act. I had a student contact me at 10:30 p.m. I was almost going to bed, and she said that I don't think life is worth living. I drove for 40 minutes to go meet her, to go talk things through, because she could not access the counseling service at the school because they had already closed. She's now in an amazing place helping those with suicide ideation. I don't think it was because of what we did together, but just she was so inspired by the helping hand, right?
I think too that if you have a friend who has come to you with something and they're asking you to keep it a secret, is there a way that you can keep that information, the person, confidential, and be able to seek out advice from other people? Like in counseling, one of the things that we do if we have an issue that comes across or comes into our office and we don't know what to do is consult, consult, consult. You'd be so proud. I remember you saying that in class. Consult, consult, consult. And so we consult our fellow counselors and kind of mastermind. Like, well, what would I do if I was in your situation dealing with this particular client? You know, in this situation, your client's a friend, somebody that you know. So you can ask other people. And then I'll just go to the next question because I don't remember. Or
I'll tag on to that. I would say, I know the counselors might be like, oh no, she's going off the rails when I say this, but sometimes my personal experience when I'm sitting with people, my intuitive hit is they say, keep this a secret, don't tell, but they want you to tell because they need help. And that may either be conscious or oftentimes it's subconscious. It's kind of like when somebody cuts. That's because there's so much internal pain. They're doing something externally to distract themselves. I buy blingy shoes, but some people do it different, right? To dull this pain. Sometimes when people, with the cutting, when they hide it, it's actually a little bit scarier and more urgent, oftentimes, than when they're showing you. Sometimes they're showing you, even if it's a subconscious mechanism. Your brain's really smart, and sometimes your brain is trying to save you when your emotions are, you don't know how. And so I would just submit, whether it's that or something else, when somebody says, keep it a secret, sometimes they're saying, please, for the love of God, give me an intervention. Not always, but sometimes. So hear what they're not saying beneath what they're saying and dig into that intuitive hit. And that takes some practice and work and trusting yourself and working with that, because it can't be ego mind. And sometimes you got to throw intellection out and all of that. And you just have to really hold space, like we've been talking about, listen and be. And sometimes you'll really feel, oh, this is what they're really saying. So.
next question.
Oh,
Or
before
did you
you
have something?
go-
Yeah.
Oh, is this working?
Yeah, just talk loud.
Oh, okay. No, I was going to say Shelly's not off the rails. She's right on target. It is very accurate. If people are speaking up, they don't want the secret. If not, they wouldn't have said anything. So, yep, you're right on target.
So next question, if you are dating a man who is not in touch with his emotions as a woman, how can I help him?
I actually do have something to say about this. My wife had a tough hill to climb when she met me. I was not all that far on the journey to being in touch with my emotions. If there's, I guess in a lot of ways, you can't, other than just being there, right? Because it's not your fault. You didn't do it. The world did it. The world put us as men in this box where we have to be these warriors that always have it together, and we can fix everything, and we can beat anybody up, and like all of these crazy, like stupid ideas. And there's no amount of like saying that it's okay that's really going to change that, because the world just keeps beating it back into his head. But just being there and reminding him that you are there continuously and not going anywhere when he goes back to his Neanderthal ways, it can be life-changing.
What comes up for me with this question is modeling and reflecting. So modeling to your partner what living emotionally looks like. Isaac is talking about it, like this cultural masculine ideology that precedes us, that men need to be emotionally stoic, that they have to be self-reliant. And so even modeling how you can live an emotional life, being expressive, talking about your emotions, having those conversations with him, you're still fighting against all of that masculine ideology. But modeling it over and over and over again is really important, and being patient with that process. And then reflecting too. So being a mirror to this person by bringing up things in relationship that you can use as examples of, like, when this happened, I felt this way. Like when we were engaging in conversation, I began to feel sad. And so reflecting that back to him, it's kind of like that modeling of showing what does this emotional landscape even look like, you know? In some ways, working with people who are not in touch with their emotions, I think of Helen Keller, where deaf and blind, like, how do you teach them to communicate? And it's not like I can reach inside another person and be like, oh yeah, you know, joy feels like this. Anger feels like this. Sadness feels like this. Like, you have to come alongside them and be like, okay, what are you feeling? I don't know. Okay, well, here are some words. Let's try them on. You know, so it is a challenge.
I'm also going to say, just text him right now and say, Shelly will let you in this afternoon for free. Come on, just tell them you're sick at work because you need to be here to listen to Trevor's talk later today. So text him and say, come on in, you have a free ticket from Shelly G. And, you know, maybe we can get the journey started.
All right, next question. How do you address teenagers or kids with mental health?
Okay, I guess I'm it. No, I enjoy and love working with teenagers, in case you're curious. I think they're just at a prime. So I think for me, as a recommendation just in general for parents or adult humans that are around other kids and teenagers, I would say, is realizing, first of all, there's a couple things, is physiologically know that there's things that are happening, and also around kind of the emotions, everything that's happening within them. So aside from what might be the particular challenge, I was thinking about our speaker yesterday too, is the development of what's happening naturally already creates a complexity. So going back to the question about just mental health or mental illness, if you are seeing things, one of the things that I recommend is that being open to asking the question. Many times in the work that I do with teenagers, even though they might fight it, going back to the original point that Shelley made earlier, is even though they might fight it, they want to be able to share with you. However, many times us as adults struggle with being able to hold that information. Like, what do I do if they are telling me I don't feel well? Like every day I feel sad and I don't know how to feel better. The one thing we try to do, because we almost want to take that away from them in the immediacy because we can see the struggle. So I say, be there. And then, as Trevor mentioned too, get other support. Don't feel like you have to have all the answers all the time. I think for me, that's one of the things I realized really early on as a parent and then even as a counselor and therapist is sometimes I didn't have the answers and I needed to get others to also help me. So making those steps of just being open and being able to hear them, those were some of the things that some of the people that I've worked with have said that felt like you could really see me.
So my family just came out of, a few months ago, we came out of a 16-month battle with cancer with my daughter. And from a situational standpoint, she's happy and healthy. By the way, I forget to mention that sometimes. She is a happy, healthy, mean to her dad 6th grader. So the fact that she has the energy to do that is, I'll take it. So as you can probably imagine, a stage 4 cancer diagnosis is devastating for everyone. And the not knowing and just the brutality of the treatment put her at lows so often. And I think as parents, sometimes we want to handle everything for our children. We want to make the decisions. We want to talk to the doctors. We want to do all the things. But we have to remember, although they're children, they're humans, and by eliminating them from the process, I think we too often eliminate their ability to process what's going on in their heads. And so we've never really talked to my daughter like she was a child. We've always talked to her like an adult. Like if you ever have the opportunity to sit down with her, she's going to be a world-renowned speaker someday, I'm sure. You would not know that you were talking to a 12-year-old because we've really driven it home that your life, although we're your parents, and if it goes too far, we're going to be like, it's your journey, it's your path, and we want you to be as much a part of the decision making in that process as possible. And I think that obviously she was still hurt, she was still sad, she was still down, but I feel like she was able to recover from a lot of those things because she felt like she had more control over the big picture. So releasing that parental control a little bit sometimes within reason can be incredibly empowering for them.
I love, am I on? I love the word empowering. I had guardianship over 4 kids at one point in my life, and the oldest had a stroke at the age of 7. And so her journey through the healthcare system was 3 months long. Her journey living post the stroke to now and forever, right, lifelong. But it was a family who is limited in English, and so her family, her biological parents, did not understand what their daughter was going through. I was brought in as an interpreter initially, and then we fell in love as a family. So I was able to take on the guardianship role over all the kids' health care and academic, right? So happy to say that they're all in college now and doing wonderful, including the oldest, yes. But it was such an incredible journey for her, and to observe that, her growing up. and kind of alone, right? Asking the question, am I gonna live? When is this gonna happen again? Trying to make decisions for the health care with the family involved and the family looking to me like we don't even know. She's young, 7 years old, right? Within that journey, you're gonna have to make the decision at some point. What do you want? What do you want from us? How can we help you? Let's go through the scenarios of the decisions, what it might impact you, the family, and everything else, right? Let's talk about it, and let's help you make an informed decision, even though you're 12 years old. How do you do that, right? And it's really being with them. Empowerment is such a key word, right? Letting them know that although you're kind of leading this decision for yourself, you're not alone. We're here with you. We're on the sidelines. We're next to you. We're behind you. We're in front of you, and we're going to help you get through this.
Next question, how would you address social anxiety or anxiety itself?
Again, just a practical thing for me. Physical activity is everything for me. On a day when I've been out and I've put up 50 miles on my skateboard or I've been rock climbing, it's easy to wind down, it's easy to go to sleep at night. When there's been a gap in physical activity, it's a totally different story. I'm a different person. And then the social anxiety is again, those activities that you enjoy. Doing an activity you enjoy you're more likely to do that with people. So rock climbing and skateboarding for me, I do actually do with other people. I don't always just ride alone on subarctic islands. So yeah, finding an activity that's physical is very helpful for me.
There are different levels of anxiety. There's like general anxiety that I think all of us feel every day. And then there's anxiety that is like more clinical, that you would go to a counselor or a therapist, a psychologist about, and like medication is okay for anxiety. That can be a huge life changer for some people, just being able to have medication to help them with that anxiety. Especially if there's something underneath that anxiety that needs further attention. It can work as like bringing the bar down so that that person can function through life and can do the work that they need to do on the root cause of that anxiety. Personally, for myself, I have had a journey through anxiety, and I would consider it more of like a general anxiety, not clinical. But what I have done for myself that's worked has been to pay attention to that anxiety. Emotions are messages. They're telling a story. So what is the story that this emotion is telling me? When I'm feeling anxious, what's going on in my day that day? What message, what belief is coming up for me that day? And then when I have that, then I can address like why I'm feeling anxious. There's nothing worse than going through your day and being like, why do I feel so anxious? Oh, I had 5 cups of coffee. Like that's like a good one. Like that's easy. That just passes through my system. You know, it's harder when it's like, oh, like it's harder when it's like, oh, I don't believe in myself. Then it's like, oh, great. Okay, I get to journal about that. I get to figure out where does that show up for me in other areas of my life. Like, then I get to do a little bit more personal development.
Can I just say that caffeine will stoke up your anxiety? So be careful. Like literally, if you're struggling with it, whether it's a day or a week or a month or 3 years, who's counting? Go off the caffeine. And sometimes, like, if you love that cup of coffee, really they do make some nice decaf anymore, or decaf tea or something, where you can still get that comfort, whatever, without the caffeine, because, and you guys could even speak to this more, but that really does amp people that have anxiety. That's a tough one. The other thing that I would say is that a lot of times anxiety and depression are like brothers or sisters. They kind of toggle hand in hand. And a lot of times there's a root cause to it. you know? So sometimes it's not, medication's never wrong, but it all starts with so many questions. What is happening? What's happened in the past? What's happening now? Physically, emotionally, all of those things. And there may be trauma. We have a lot of trauma in life. Life's traumatic. It has been for everybody. And trauma's not just someone dying. Trauma is losing a job. Trauma is losing a friendship. Things not going the way that you thought. Parenting can be traumatic. And so I like to call it, there's these micro traumas. And sometimes when they're coming at you every day, like a hostile work environment or a stalker, I don't know, just things like that. Not that I have any experience, I don't, but I do. But those things add up. And we compare sometimes. Well, I don't have the story, that Isaac does. And so my stuff, why am I so anxious? And we shame on ourselves. Just stop it. Or we shame on each other. Just stop it. Pull your big girl panties up, or just suck it up, guys. And it's like, what horrible advice. If they could, they would. If they could, they would. So obviously they've already tried that, by the way. So something else needs to happen. And EMDR is an amazing, amazing, amazing therapy by a licensed counselor that has that certification and is good at it. You want to get good referrals anywhere that you go. And, put yourself in a vulnerable place with any caregiver of any level. But EMDR can be an amazing, amazing therapy that not only helps PTSD and people that have struggled with small to big traumas, but it helps with anxiety and depression for many of the clients that I've referred over to do it too. So EMDR, it's magic.
So I'm glad that you talked about there being levels, right? For me, I wouldn't say that my anxiety was at a clinical level, right? It was just being a little unsure, or maybe just not having the experience that I needed to feel more comfortable in some of the situations I found myself in. And it was really powerful for me to kind of dip my toe in the water and be willing to show up to events and things like that and kind of ride the bench for a little while and just watch people. And so I encourage anybody that's struggling with anxiety at some level, just look for opportunities to go out and just kind of sit and people watch, right? And to learn and maybe start slowly creating some relationships. This is something, and I talk about most everything in the frame of veterans. It's something that I'm doing for the veteran population. COVID was hard for everybody, businesses, nonprofits. It was devastating for us, and when we came back out of it, I had a different idea about how we would address getting people into a room. And even previous to COVID, even if we'd have 100 people in the room, I knew that there were people that weren't in the room that should have been in the room and probably needed to be in the room more than the people that actually showed up. And anxiety it plays a huge role in that. So we actually launched an application, an iOS and Android app that allows veterans to literally, in the palm of their hand, have access to some of these networking opportunities, like building friendships and things and connections, so they can dip their toe in the water and they can gain that confidence that can override the anxiety that comes with getting into some of those social situations. So I appreciate what you said there, because not all anxiety is like at this degree where you need to seek treatment. Like sometimes it's just something that you can overcome just by taking little steps, maybe a little immersion therapy.
And as I was hearing you, it kind of reminded me too that because of the different levels, is also remembering, at least for me, I don't necessarily shame my anxiety, because actually anxiety can help you. And let me tell you for a second, because for those of you like, what is she talking about? And she's a counselor. So if I didn't have enough anxiety that would prompt me to show up today, I would have just stayed home. But the anxiety kind of also helps me. So for me, when I think about that and reframe it in a way that it is not something shameful that I need to be embarrassed about, that it actually is helping me to move along to be successful in different things and normalizing it. And yes, there's times that it can become debilitating. Sometimes we need help. Other times it just means, oh, I'm going to take a little pause. For those of you that don't know, like before I come into a space, I'm like, oh, I just need to meditate for a few seconds. People are not even going to know. They might think I'm on my phone, and I'm just going to do my thing. And you can also do that if you're feeling like it's taken away. But I also don't want to demonize it, because feelings are feelings, and we don't need to add judgment to them.
That's so good. Not adding the judgment. Yes, so much yes. Next question, how do you address the societal stigmas around PTSD, anxiety, mental health issues? Example, veterans having service animals.
So the first step is the way we talk about it, I believe. Right there in the question is PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. We need to get rid of that D. It's not a disorder. It's something that has happened to us. There's nothing wrong with us. I think the way that we describe things it creates that stigma, and maybe we don't realize it, but using words like disorder, it's like, oh, it's a disorder. There's obviously something wrong with me, or there's obviously something wrong with him. So bottom line, just the way we talk about it.
Yeah, just in short, this right here, being able to talk openly and as much as you can, wherever you can. And for me, it was really hard to talk about. I made the film and then was kind of thrown on the fire of like, oh, here, now talk about your film. And I know it's helped other people, but mostly it's helped me to feel like be in an arena like this where I can openly say, hey, I had bipolar, hey, everyone died and I went and skated. Makes me, I feel better.
Let's take just kind of go down the row. We've got a handful of minutes left, although you don't have to worry about that. I'll worry about that. If we go just a tiny bit over, it's fine. Maybe just last thoughts. It's so hard. This time goes by so fast. All this incredible wisdom and hearts on the stage. What would be a last thought that you feel maybe intuitively you're like, this is what somebody needs to hear or I need to say? And then we are also going to put up a slide, I believe, with some resources as well. There's so many resources. We are very lucky in this day and age that we have our phones and we have our computers. And one of the ways we can help people is when they're overwhelmed, maybe they can't find that resource or they're just too overwhelmed and they're plenty smart enough, but they literally, have you ever had those days? I just can't go sit at that computer and do anything. And so be that for them. Sometimes we don't need to give them every answer in the world, but we just can give them a nudge or give them a little help. Say, hey, here's some resources I looked at for you. If it's helpful, great. I love the idea of languaging because I think part of it's, I can't tell somebody, well, you should or you need. I mean, I can, but one of the ways I've tried to relanguage that is, you know what, this is my intuitive hit. You deserve some support in this area. You deserve it. It's not like, well, you need help because you're weird. You know what I mean? The way that we language that's like, well, you need a therapist. Okay, well, that's not going to help. But to say, you know what, I love you. You're amazing. I can see this struggle. One thing that I am thinking right now that you could think about and just consider the possibility of is I believe you could deserve a really amazing therapist. There's a way of putting it in very positive. Aren't these solutions and resources amazing? We have access to incredible resources. And so framing it in such a way that it's an opportunity and not a bad thing, not a shameful thing. There is help. There is hope. We just need to access it.
Are we going down the line? Okay, great. That's me. Final thoughts. Helping other people heal is really hard. Because you can't just, like I was talking about before, you can't just reach inside of them and flip a switch. They have to be the ones to decide to do it. It can be really challenging to stand by in relationship with people in our lives that you know, man, they would just find so much value if they went and got a therapist, got a counselor, got a life coach, did some personal development. They would grow so much. Or I can just see this one area for them where they would move beyond this if they just went out and got some help. And so my encouragement to you in the crowd, those who have people like that in your life, is just stand by. Be a safe place for that person. Remain curious. The moment that we step into judgment is the moment that we stop asking questions and we stop being curious. Remain curious with these people. Stay open, non-judgmental, be patient, and man, just continue to encourage them. Don't stop encouraging them to find help. Like when it's appropriate, of course. Like don't. You can scare them away from it entirely if you try too hard. So just finding those places where it's appropriate, those open doors to say, remember this thing we were talking about that? Maybe this would be a good time.
I guess just that to remember that no matter what your brain's trying to convince you of, because our brain can be our biggest enemy sometimes, someone cares. Even if you don't know them, right? Even if you've never met them before, someone out there cares. If you feel like you're alone, it's never true. There is always someone out there that wants better for you and that will help you take the steps on that mental health journey, mental wellness journey, to get you to the finish line. And also just taking the time to practice some self-care. For me, it's something as simple as getting up in the morning and going to the gym, right? I mean, sometimes those days are really, really hard to make happen. But if you just get up, walk around the block, get up, do something that just kind of gets the blood pumping and gets the serotonin moving. And I promise you that more often than not, it's going to have a positive impact on your day.
For me, the one takeaway I got from my adventure in Iceland was the importance of taking time regularly to feel joy, whatever that is for you.
I think for me, as I was sitting here, I was thinking about the importance of when you are hearing it from others. However, I think for me, I landed actually, my hope would be that you invest in you. And what I'm trying to say is that you are also a model for others. So what you're doing matters. So I'm hoping that you can think about, what am I doing in my life? Don't wait till you, like if it's a physical issue, we don't go to the doctor until our ankles are broken. We don't want to go to a counselor when we're really deep in depression. I'd hope that you can invest in yourself if you're just feeling down, if you're just not feeling like your usual self. What are you doing for you to giving back to yourself? And you owe that to yourself just as anything else that you're doing. That's important.
Well, you guys have said it all, so there is really not much that I can say other than it's okay to be vulnerable, to connect with people, to connect to hearts, to help you heal, to help others heal. You have to share your story, right? How can you relate? I think you talked about relationships. So instead of having a transactional relationship, foster relational relationships. Share your human journey stories.
Everybody, big round of applause for our awesome panelists.